Leave me, Vine, Jungkook said as he pushed her hand away. Vine was holding Jungkook's wrist, trying to stop him from going away from her. They were standing in the middle of the road. The car stopped in front of them because of the red signal. But all of a sudden, as Jungkook pushed Vine away, a speeding car came from nowhere, although the signal was red, and it hit Vine. Though she survived, she had got a lot of injuries, physical and emotional as well. Jungkook immediately turned back to look at her, his feet shaking at the sight of her sitting on the road, all injured, as she stared on the ground. She scoffed and got up herself. Although stammering, she somehow went the opposite side of Jungkook's. For some seconds, he was just stuck at his place after seeing her on the ground. But as soon as she started walking, he came into senses and ran before her, while calling her name again and again. But she didn't stop. Her eyes were empty, feeling emotionless, just walking like a living corpse with feet bleeding and other injuries. Jungkook reached her, his heart thundering in his chest, and as he was about to touch her, she took a step back, gesturing him not to. She looked at him. "Leave me alone, Jungkook." He looked in her eyes. The pain and suffering filled them, and he could sense all of it. But looking at her body, he didn't care. He picked her up in his arms. Despite her constantly telling him not to, he picked her up in his arms in bridal style as he said, "You can punish me later. Right now, just stay quiet," he said, and watched her getting tired of trying to get away from his grip. She was already injured, so she didn't have any more courage. She closed her eyes, tears falling down from them, as she remembered what happened and what she did to make him so mad that he had to push her away. Flashback. Vine. "You cannot kill everyone in the world for me." Jungkook. "You cannot imagine what I can do for you, Vine." Vine was staying at her friend's place, chit-chatting, laughing, and drinking. But Vine noticed that it was already late at night. As soon as she looked at the clock, she spilled the beer that was in her mouth. Vine. "Daniel, I have to leave. I didn't look at the time. Jungkook will be hell worried." Daniel. "Why? We were having so much fun. Can't you stay for just one more hour? Or maybe stay with me for a night, please?" Vine. "Are you kidding me? You know I'm married, right? Let me get my phone from the room and I will leave." As Vine was going towards the room to take her phone, which was on charging, Daniel pulled her back from her waist, caging her in his embrace. Daniel. "For one night, please." Vine was shocked as she saw this side of Daniel. She never expected this from him. She pulled back as she slapped him on the face and ran towards the room. Daniel, in the meantime, was angry as hell. He followed her to the room. Vine looked at her phone and Jungkook miscalled her already for 8 times. Her mouth widened after seeing them. She couldn't hear the ringtone because of the loud music outside. She was about to call him back, but Daniel snatched the phone away from her. Vine. "What the hell has gotten into you, Daniel? Give me my phone back." Daniel. "I just asked for one night. Is it too hard for you that you dare to slap me? What do you take me for, huh?" Daniel raised his voice on Vine, and as far as she could remember, it was the first time he did so, and she was afraid. Daniel started taking slow steps towards Vine, her heart racing as she took steps back until she hit the wall. Vine. What the hell are you doing, Daniel? You're drunk. Don't do anything that you might regret later. Daniel didn't say anything, so Vine started screaming. Before Daniel could come closer to her, a loud thud was heard by outside, pulling their attention. And Vine took the chance to run outside. But as soon as she did, she saw Jungkook standing at the door, breathing heavily, his gaze constantly on her. Jungkook decided to pick her up as it was getting late at night. But when she didn't pick up the phone, he raced the car. And he wouldn't break that innocent door if he didn't hear her scream. Vine immediately ran towards him, his arms grasping her in his protective embrace, as he looked at Daniel with his hunting eyes. Daniel's legs started shaking, seeing Jungkook like this, and he immediately ran outside from the back door. Jungkook instantly pulled away from Vine and decided to run behind him, but Vine held him back. She hugged him again as she said, "Please don't leave me alone." She was almost crying, but knowing that she was in his embrace, she didn't have to. Jungkook sighed as he tightened his grip against her, trying to comfort her. After all, Jungkook saw his face, and he can kill him in a moment if he wants to. Jungkook and Vine started walking on the road because she asked him to, as she needed some fresh air and walked, her racing heart through all of it. Some moments later, Vine. "You cannot kill everyone because of me, Jungkook. I beg you to punish him as brutally as you want, and then hand him to the police. But please." Jungkook, "You have no idea what I can do for you, Vine. I will kill the whole world if I have to keep you safe. How dare he even touch you?" Vine. "Why do you always have to be so reckless, Jungkook? Think of the consequences for once in your life." Vine tied her hands together as she pleaded him. Jungkook. "Why do you always have to be so feared, even when you're with me? I'm not sparing him." Vine cannot see someone being killed because of her. No matter what he did, she just cannot bear it. Jungkook. "I'm not sparing him," he said and started walking away. But Vine tried to stop him as she held his wrist, but Jungkook immediately pushed her away as a reflex, something that wasn't intentional at all. Or even if it was, he didn't know that something so worse will happen to her. Present. Jungkook waited beside Vine as the doctor treated Vine's injuries, his heart pounding in his chest uncontrollably while Vine was fainted. After treating her, the doctor left, telling Jungkook that all the injuries were minor and they wouldn't lead to something big if they're treated every day. Time stood still as Jungkook sat beside Vine, his thoughts a jumble of fear, regret, and longing. He replayed their argument in his head, wondering if he could have done something differently, if he could have spared her this pain. He squeezed her hand gently, as if to reassure himself that she was still with him, that she would wake up and smile at him again. As Vian's eyes flickered open, Jungkook's heart skipped a beat. He leaned in, his face etched with concern. But Vian's gaze slid right past him, focusing on the ceiling instead. Vian, can you hear me? Jungkook asked, his voice soft and gentle. But Vian's silence was deafening. She didn't even acknowledge his presence, her expression a mark of indifference. Vian, please talk to me. Jungkook pleaded, his voice cracking with emotion. I was so scared. I thought I promise I will never do it again. Not even by mistake. Just forgive me, please. But Vian's gaze never wavered. Her eyes fixed on some point above his head. She didn't even flinch at his words. Her silence a stark contrast to the passionate argument they had before the accident. Jungkook's heart ached, feeling the weight of her silence like a heavy burden. To be continued. Jungkook's heart felt like it had been punched, the air knocked out of him as Vian told him. Sorry is not enough, Jungkook. You're not protecting me. You're scaring me.